Welcome everybody to part 2 of the comprehensive guide to owning a clinical research site. Yes, you heard it correctly. This is part 2. So if you just happen to stumble upon this from the interwebs that you were surfing,
should you see part 1 first?
You should see part 1 first. You don't have to. I mean, if you just stumbled upon this video and you don't want to stop, continue.
It's okay to do it out of order?
Continue, yeah. But It's not the way I would do it, but sure. But the link will be underneath this video for part 1. But this is the road to site ownership. See, it goes get a PI, equipment and office layout, finding studies, startup regulatory, monitoring visits, and then contracts and budgets. This is what was covered in part 1. And we're going to go through them just so you can get an idea of what we talked about while I'm doing this and getting to our slide, or our bubble. That's what they're called on this Prezi. Why don't you introduce yourself, Chris? Who are you?
I'm Chris.
Where do you come from? What do you do? And something interesting about yourself.
That's too many questions.
Well, I need those answers because it's going to take me a while to get through here. There you are on the screen.
Yeah, that's me, Chris Sauber.
Perfect timing. So keep going.
And what do I do, you said?
Yeah, I already forgot the order of things I asked you. But who are you?
I just said I'm Chris Sauber.
But people want to know, like, who is Chris Sauber? I don't know who that is. Who
am I and why am I here?
Besides a great fantasy football player.
Okay, shut up.
Who is Chris Sauber? We're almost there.
Okay, a question I've never been asked. Who am I? Well, I'm a human being.
That's a great start. And we're almost where we need to be, so you might have just...
Stalled enough. Chris
is a contracts and budget expert, okay? We'll go back to this. So this is what Chris does for our clients.
Yes, I do. Okay. A lot of that.
So here we are. We are on SOPs and source, okay? And we're going to cover SOPs and source docs, finding patients, study staff and training, quality assurance, expansion, and then everyone's favorite, miscellaneous.
I don't see number 6 on them now.
No, I fixed them. I updated these Prezis.
Because it did say number 6, I think, before, right?
Right.
Something like that.
Yeah,
Bubble
so
6.
If you watch the part 1, it'll say topic 6 for all of these. So now, let's get into it. SOPs and source documents, okay? Are you able to see, Chris?
I can see.
Okay. So, SOPs, standard operating procedures. All right, can you explain briefly what this means? This might be an easier question than who are you?
It's definitely an easier question. So each site needs to, well, you don't actually need standard operating procedures until you're asked for them. But you should have, by default, at least a standard operating procedure for informed consent process. And the rationale behind that is you're almost always asked for it. So at least have that standard operating procedure. But as time goes on, you'll be asked more and more for different operating procedures at site level. So you'll have to prepare many more topics on many more topics. So one of the offerings we have for our services is we can provide you with already created standard operating procedure template. It's already been made. It's plenty usable as is, though we certainly recommend reading through it and changing things that you may not want to follow to something that your site will follow. But I think there's around 50 total different sections.
50 some odd sections. We're updating it all the time. It grows. We sometimes take away things. The last revision, I remember removing some things based on an audit we had, some recommendations from the auditor. So as your clinic grows and as it goes through, as it gets battle tested,
goes through more studies.
It goes through more studies, and as your SOPs get audited, you will get recommendations. Sometimes from like the good auditors, they'll actually give you recommendations. If they're a sponsor, auditor, or a CRO, they will give you positive feedback. If they are a FDA, they don't care. They're going to just give you negative feedback. So,
what do you mean by negative? You mean just
negative means you did not do this. This is what your SOP says.
Right.
Positive feedback is more like, hey, this shouldn't be in here.
Right. So negative feedback from the FDA is you're not following this procedure that your SOP says you should be.
Or I guess it'd be more like findings.
Right.
Know?
Right.
So anyways, we have templates. We give it to all our clients. We give them all a disclaimer, though. You can't just copy and paste someone else's SOPs and use them as your SOPs, because one of the biggest findings the FDA has is that sites do not follow their own SOPs.
And this is why I said you have to read them and change them accordingly.
Correct.
So something you will follow.
So the good news is, if you're a startup site and you have your first site selection visit, your first SSV scheduled, you do not need your entire SOP yet. It would be nice to have it, but you won't need it. What they're going to ask you is for your process of informed consent, and they might ask you for your table of contents. So you at least have to have those things, and then you're going to have to get busy, because at the SIV, they're going to eventually want to see your SOPs. You're eventually going to need SOPs, so get your table of contents. We have like 50 sections. No, we will not share those with the public. You have to be a client to get those. We share just about everything else. We will not share those. But we'll talk about concepts of what you need in an SOP on this bubble. Okay, so like I said, your most important one is the process of ICF consent. So can you explain, Chris, what is the process of ICF?
Just follow GCP, which you'll need that training as well. Everybody who works on research trials needs a certification of GCP.
That's right. So at a typical SSV, a monitor is going to say, usually ask the study coordinator, what is your process of consent at your site? And then you're supposed to say, our SOP states that patients are given enough time to make a decision. They're put in a quiet room with the PI, the sub-I, or another appropriately delegated staff member. Plenty of time is made for questions. We make sure that the patient understands what they're getting into. We make sure there's no coercion. We make sure that they're given a copy of it to take home and review. We make sure that they are given enough time to discuss with family. Those are your process of consent.
I would include, you mentioned everything in GCP except for no study procedures are performed prior to signing the consent.
Ah, yes, and that is a final exam CRA Academy question.
Yeah. So hopefully we have no... Oh, no, they already took the final. I was going to say hopefully no students are listening.
Well, they won't get the answer.
But yeah, basically it's just straight out of GCP. You want your SOPs to reflect what GCP states.
So back to the SOP. So literally in every SOP, you're going to need to document every single process that your site has. From lab collection process, transportation of subjects process, compensation of subjects process, regulatory, startup regulatory, source document creation, scheduling visits, pre-screening. I mean, anything you can think of that your site needs to do, which we've discussed in both of these part 1 and part 2, and everything that we discussed in that 5-hour video. Basically everything that a site needs to operate. Like all the activities, all the processes that they need to do need to be covered in your SOP. And there's a lot. I mean, the SOP is like a cookbook for the site. You know, how to prepare a meal. If you think of the site as like a meal, okay, well, how to prepare the meal? Well, first you got to prep the kitchen. Then you got to find the ingredients. Then you, or you know, the other order, find the ingredients, source the ingredients, where you get them from. So it gets very detailed. Every single topic gets extremely detailed. Now the trick is, you want to make the SOPs vague.
As vague as you can.
Yes, as vague as you can, so that you have the leeway to deviate from them. and not get held accountable by a regulator.
Yep.
But you also want to be detailed enough to where a new staff member could come in and kind of learn or kind of know how to do the process if they are trained on the SOP. So it's like, this is a very much of a science meets art aspect of running a research site.
The one thing I would agree with that. The one thing I would kind of disagree with is I don't really know how many true sections to the SOP are needed, because in my experience, the sponsors, they all want to see that you have, or the CRAs or whomever, they all want to see that you have the ICF SOP, but very few ask for something else, right? It's just every once in a while, and it's oftentimes something you don't have prepared. It's just something of a concern for that sponsor.
But
right?
they will always ask at an audit.
And they'll ask for table of contents occasionally.
But an auditor, no matter where they're from, IRB, sponsor, CRO, FDA, is going to ask for SOP.
Yeah.
Just like when you did your audit for a site.
Sure.
First thing you asked, let me see your SOP.
Right. That's true. For an audit, yes, that's true.
So an audit's part of doing, part of being in business.
Sure.
You get a study, you can be audited. Right? So add to the SOPs when necessary. I guess this kind of answers the question. Add when necessary. If a monitor asks you, do you have a SOP for this? And the answer is no. So we'll make one.
Yeah, we'll create one.
We'll make an amendment to our existing SOP for you guys. This is how our SOP grew into 50 plus sections. It used to be like 20 something.
Yep.
Okay, so add to it when necessary. If you add to it or you subtract from it, it's a new version. So now whatever naming conventions you give it, whether you use a version number or a date, you got to have it titled. You have to have a log for all the staff and what version of the SOP they've been trained on. Just like a protocol, right? Keep them simple. All right, so that's the SOPs. Anything we're missing for the SOPs before we move on to source?
No, I think you captured all the necessary components there.
And we have webinars on SOP. So just go to the YouTube channel and you can find, matter of fact, we'll do it now. So this is the YouTube channel here. See some fantasy football tips.
And Bitcoin.
Some Bitcoin. You can tell what I'm interested in.
Social Security. That surprises me. Why are you concerned about Social Security?
I'm not, but the algorithm thinks I am.
All right.
Okay, so playlist. This is how you go. You go to my channel. You go to playlists. We have webinars on a lot of topics. We have one on, and we're going to keep referencing some of these webinars in this Prezi. We have one on SOP writing for clinical research sites. See? So this is a 30-minute one. 17 thumbs up, 1 thumb down.
SOP. Oh, thumb down.
There's always someone.
What the hell?
I think this was me by accident. No, me on purpose will be in number 18. Okay. So this is the SOP writing. We explain what they are. We explain the benefits. I mean, we go in depth for like 29 minutes on this.
So I'm curious.
So that's the webinar.
Is there a comment that would reflect that 1 thumbs down?
No, some people just do it to be different. Or sometimes there's a genuine reason. Alright, so anyways, if you're watching this is a perfect segue. Give this a thumbs up, subscribe, and tell 5 friends about this so that they can also subscribe and thumb up.
There you go.
Please, okay? So that's all the SOP. Watch the webinar for more. Now we go to the source, okay? Source documents. Source is very important, Chris.
It is?
Source is any document.
You don't need source.
You do.
Chris. No, I've heard of sites that just enter string to EDC, no problems.
This is foolish, Chris.
I've heard of sites doing this though.
Right, so that would be horrible. So let's explain. Any document where there's something to collect, not EDC. Okay, not EDC, in almost all cases. All right, Alcoa-C principles must be followed. All right, that's attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, accurate, complete.
Mm-hmm.
Let's break that down. I know you're going to go through this tomorrow with a CRA Academy student.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we do have a CRA Academy that you should probably join.
Teaches you all of these things.
In depth. This
Yep.
would be like an entire week. Actually, this topic is 2 weeks.
It is.
Okay, so explain Alcoa-C, please, Grills, for the
Well,
masses.
It's an acronym for what you use as a site and CRA to develop your data, source and otherwise, regulatory. And are you suggesting we would define what each letter in the acronym means?
No. But, I mean, people can look that up. But when completing source documents, you have to follow Alcoa-C.
Yep.
Okay? This is data that you're collecting in a study that goes on the source. That has to be the origination point of this data.
Mm-hmm.
Then that data gets entered into the EDC, the Electronic Data Capture System, otherwise known as the CRF, Case Report Form.
Yep.
Those two things are the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
People get confused, EDC and CRF, what's the difference? There is no difference, same thing. Case Report Form could be electronic or paper. That's the only difference. EDC is electronic.
And they rarely have paper CRFs anymore.
Correct. So sites usually need to create their own source document for each visit of each study. And let's go through some examples so you can see.
All right.
The sponsors used to make
I'm
these
excited.
source.
Let's see them.
I can't wait till we get to the source document example.
All right.
This is the most exciting thing that's happened to me all day.
Wow.
I know.
Quite the boring life you have.
Very, very much so. The most exciting thing that has ever happened is this transition to the source document example.
We're transitioning now.
There we go. Source.
Mm-hmm.
Taken straight from Site Owner Academy. Which, yes, we have one of those also, by the way.
Yep.
You should join.
I should join?
No, the viewer.
The listeners.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so here's a source doc example. Remember, sites have to create this. This is like one page of a source document. This is a visit 1, as you can see here. Visit 1, screening visit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You will actually have the protocol number here. You'll have your site number and then the subject number. There's templates for source, but you've got to create it. And this is actually a very good task for a study coordinator to do when they're learning a protocol, because creating the source, you end up having, it forces you to learn the protocol.
It does.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
So here's a page where it's the process of consent for screening visit, and then the demographics like date of birth, gender, race, ethnicity. These things are usually always done at screening. So you can have a template for a screening visit, but then each study has their own assessments and its own order and its own intricacies and nuances with the protocol.
No two protocols are the same.
Never. So it's not just enough to have a coordinator create them. You need a quality assurance specialist at your site or a site director to approve them. Unless you just trust that the coordinator knows what they're doing, which you shouldn't do. We're going to get into QA later on in this video. Okay, so it continues. I know, this is fascinating stuff. Okay, this is page 2 of 8. We're only showing like 2 pages. So here's the inclusion-exclusion criteria, medical history. Okay.
Well,
what do you see here? There's boxes,
I see.
there's lines, everything needs to be checked.
I don't see actual inclusion-exclusion criteria. It's something regarding it, right?
Yeah, it says were inclusion-exclusion criteria reviewed by the PI.
Okay, right.
Would it be acceptable to leave these blank?
No.
Any of these blank?
No, you're not following complete of Alcoa-C.
That's right. That's right. So that's just an example I wanted to show you. There's more. This is page 3 of 8. Okay, the physical exam continues. This is what you use to create the source.
You got to read the protocol too.
Of course.
Because there's oftentimes, most protocols now I've found, when they have the schedule of assessments and the footnotes,
Yes.
they're complete. It's everything you, for the most part, you need to know, usually, right? But every once in a while they throw you a curveball and something that needs to be in that source is not contained there in the schedule of assessment and footnotes. So you have to read the protocol.
There's no substitute for knowing the protocol like the back of your hand. Okay, so this is an example of a schedule of assessments for a study. So see, you have the screening visit, you have the baseline visit, you have visits 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the follow-up, okay? Then you have X's next to all these assessments. That's what's done at those visits. So you know if I'm creating the screening source, everything that has an X, I'm making sure it goes on the screening source. Anything that has a footnote, like this S,
I know where that came from.
we have the footnotes here, see?
Yeah.
And I just have one example. There's another page which would have the S, but let's look at, for example, A.
Something A through L.
Well, actually, these are not even related. So this is, you would get something like this in the protocol that explains the footnotes and what they are. So these are important. I mean, these are like really small things that is easy to overlook. Like when I read a book, I never read the footnotes.
Of course.
But in a protocol, you almost want to go there first. You can learn a lot about a protocol by going to the footnotes first. Okay, so don't ignore the footnotes. It's actually very important.
If you're in a hurry, schedule of assessments, footnotes, and then each visit, the breakdown of each visit, where they go through how each visit works, what's done at each visit. That's usually all you need. 95%, 98% of the time, that's all you need to know to prepare SORs. But again, you just never know.
Never know. Anything that we've left out, are you satisfied?
No, I'm satisfied.
With SOPs?
With SOPs and source documents.
And source documents, you're satisfied.
I'm satisfied.
Okay, so we can move on to finding patients.
Sure.
Which is your favorite aspect of research?
No.
Okay, finding patients. Patient recruitment. All right. The patient recruitment is the cause of 90% of study delays.
Yep.
Okay, every study just about has a problem with recruitment. We're doing a proposal later as a CRO for a sponsor, and guess what? Their biggest problem.
Yeah. Is there a way to combat this?
Their biggest problem is they don't have patients.
Yeah.
They need us to come in and be miracle workers, which we will do for a price or for equity, but we will do. Okay, so what were you saying?
Nothing. You kind of answered it.
Okay, so private practice is by far and away the best method. Everything else is a distant second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. Goes on forever.
Sure.
Okay, so all kinds of creative ideas. Monica comes up with 3 every week. Okay, but none of them, at least so far that I've seen, compares to private practice of the PI or the sub-I. Somebody involved with the studies, actually seeing patients.
Did you see Monica yesterday?
No.
Oh. I was going to ask you, since you went off on that tangent, I was going to ask you how it went on Saturdays.
I'm going to find out tomorrow.
Okay.
I can't wait.
This isn't for the audience. This is in regards to recruitment.
For tomorrow, that will be the most exciting part of my day. For today, it was this transition into the source.
Okay.
For tomorrow, it's going to be that.
Okay.
Asking Monica that and then giving her her birthday present.
Oh.
That's the most exciting part of the day tomorrow.
Very nice.
Okay, so there's other sources of recruitment. Okay, your site's database. What's the difference between a database and a private practice? Trick question.
What's the difference between a database?
Yeah, like a site database
Uh-huh.
versus a PI's database.
Okay, so a private clinic's database and a site's database?
Yes.
There's really no difference.
There is a difference.
No, not really, except for the PI's database are patients he treats. A
Correct.
site's database, they're not treated there. They're only
But they might be.
participating in research.
But they might be.
Well, sure. If it's a combination private practice
That's right.
and database.
So a PI's database, PI's private practice, all the patients that the PI treats, whether they've ever done research or not. For a site's database, it's anybody that has expressed interest in research from any source. So it could come from the PI's database. It could come from community outreach. It could come from advertising. We're going to get into these things now. Could come from outside physician referrals. However you can collect as a site these leads, those become the site database. You want to grow your site database. Sure. So then when they ask you at site selection visits, how do you recruit? Well, glad you asked. It's a combination of our PI's database and our site database. We've been able to grow both of those because the PI treats patients. We do research, and it's a combination of these things as well as outside physician referrals and advertising.
They want to see probably 80%, I would guess. Speculating here, 80% of your patients participating in research are going to come from your own database.
Right, and your own database is vague. It could mean your PI's database or your site database.
Yeah.
Okay, but just wanted to, people get confused with those things a lot. So there's a lot of confusion in this industry. I know this is exciting, man. I know you can't wait till the next transition. PI private practice. Can you wait?
Transitioning. Yeah, can't wait to transition.
Nope. Chris, that is very okay. All right, so now we're going to go to private practice. You ready for this?
I am. I'm just excited as hell.
So great. Okay, so private practice. Prescreening and database mining. This is what I like to have my assistants do. Hey, Bob, you're not doing anything right now.
You have an assistant named Bob?
No, but if I would, this is what I would do. Or I have a real one, Judith.
Okay, there you go.
Hey, Judith, go to PI's database. This is assuming they have access. They have to do their own training. They got to do HIPAA, whatever internal SOP that private practice has, they got to follow, okay? So you're assuming they have this. You go look for patients that qualify for this study and flag them. Flag them for that for the practitioner that sees them. Okay, and then go ask the receptionist when they're scheduled to come in next. You need to be there to discuss with them, or somebody needs to talk to them about research because they're a potentially good fit.
Yeah, or whatever process you have at your physician's private practice.
So that's pre-screening and database mining, okay?
Right.
So you have a private practice and a research staff develop a patient identification process, like I just outlined. That's what it is. Ideally, the healthcare provider should discuss with patient. And again, have a process. And guess what? Guess what this process is of the P? We just discussed it. SOP.
Sure. Standard
Operating Procedure. What's your process for pre-screening?
Yeah.
You can use what I just said. I don't care. You don't got to pay me. But you can donate on Venmo if you want.
Just buy down a Bitcoin. You'll be very happy.
Oh, one Bitcoin. I'd be doing backflips. Okay. I'll even take one Satoshi. 1 millionth unit of a Bitcoin.
I don't know what it is. Oh, Satoshi. Okay.
I got that. 1
down.
million.
Got it.
It's the minimum divisible. It's the minimum divisibility of a Bitcoin. It's called a Satoshi.
Okay.
Already at one Satoshi, we're going way off topic. Already one Satoshi is worth more than 7 countries' currency. One Satoshi.
Now, when you say currency, you mean like compared to a US dollar or a US penny?
No, very good question. I'm assuming it's the dollar.
Okay.
I think like Iraq, Iran, Venezuela, there's like 3 others.
Okay.
Where one Satoshi is actually worth more. Okay, so let's see. Did we cover everything here? No. Referring physicians. This is the next bubble. See? This is in order of importance. PI private practice, we discussed. Have a process. Okay. If you have a PI who's treating patients, if you have a sub-I that's treating patients, and you don't have a pre-screening and a database mining process, you're just leaving money on the table.
Right? Oh, that's without a doubt.
Yeah. Without a doubt. And we see it happen all the time, even in our own sites. Right? And yeah, there's always a reason why it doesn't work here. It's different here, Dan. It's not. Okay? It's just, there's different ways to go about it, but it's the issue is the same.
And unfortunately, sometimes those roadblocks are not movable.
Right. But the macro issue is still there. It needs to be done.
Oh, I completely agree. I know exactly what you're referring to. And unfortunately, there's just roadblocks you can't do anything about sometimes.
Okay, next bubble. Before you fall asleep, Chris.
I'm not going to fall asleep.
Referring physicians.
Yes.
Okay.
Make a network. This is an excellent way to get patients.
Explain. With a Google Map.
With a Google Map.
This is the logo here of Google Map.
I probably wouldn't start with Google Map.
I wouldn't either.
I would start with my physician, my PI.
If you watch part 1, we will show you how to identify physicians in your area. But this is Use your
That
PI's
would be
sphere of influence.
second or third on the steps.
Right. So explain.
Step one would be like you just said. Use your PI's sphere of influence.
You love that phrase.
No, you do, but it's good.
It's a good one.
I would network with my PI's colleagues. That's what I would do initially. It's going to be the easiest because your PI is going to give you a name. Say here's this person. Their address, maybe even go talk to them about referring patients. They know me, and you can name drop, and then it's no problem getting beyond the gatekeeper, right?
Right.
I mean, simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
You start doing this like cold calling, it's much more difficult.
Right. So use your physician's sphere of influence to reach their colleagues. Go talk to them about research. Yes, that does mean you're going to have to educate them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that does mean that you have to know your stuff.
Yep. Bring a few things with you too. Bring the inclusion, exclusion, any flyers that the sponsors provided you.
Yeah,
with.
any visual aids.
Yep.
The flyer we provide. If you email benefits of being a PI, educate them. Okay, what is a sub-I? What is a PI? What is a site? What is a coordinator?
Well, these are all
what is regulatory?
questions.
What is source? They don't know this stuff.
Yeah.
Why are they going to give you patients if they don't know these things?
Yeah.
Who are they? What is going on? And we know some doctors are so detail oriented. They're just going to ask you tons of questions, and you have to know the answers.
Yep.
It's their patient at the end of the day. Compensation strategies, that's going to come up, right?
Yeah, why should I dedicate my time to you? What's in it for me?
Yeah. Or you have some, you go through this whole spiel about what a sub-I is, and they say, no, I'm not interested in that. But some of my patients would qualify, so they're insinuating that they kind of want something back.
Somehow.
But you're not allowed to do referral fee.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about this in our Site Owner Academy. We actually talked about this last week. What are some compensation strategies? Well, there's many possible options. There's a percentage. There's a fee for service. There's a pre-screening option. You got to figure out what works for you. Contact legal if you need to. Seek legal guidance. Make sure you're in the clear with everything as far as compensation. All right. There's many different options here. Sometimes you need to find a specialist for certain assessments or even a niche study where they require you to have a specialist either as the PI or as a sub-I. Well, in those cases, you're going to need these physicians not only to refer patients, but to do certain assessments or even for you to be allowed to have the study. You need a specialist. So you need to figure out all these things. Okay, what's in it for them? What's in it for you? How can you make that work out within the framework of the law?
Mm-hmm.
Logistics in regards to referral and the sales process. So it's one thing for you to go to that doctor across the street and say, hey, we really appreciate any referrals you have. Thank you. Here's a flyer. Here's a card. Well, that's great, but how do you know that that's actually going to happen? The minute you leave, they're going to forget about it.
You may even throw your stuff away.
Right. So what's the process? You want to be as detailed as possible. Okay, doctor, thanks. So when you get a patient, can I actually have someone here sitting in the waiting room on days that you're seeing patients? And when you see somebody who's potentially appropriate for the study, they will talk to my staff member. Mm-hmm. All they're going to do is sit in your office all day and wait till you send them somebody.
Yep.
Okay? I've done this before. It works.
Mm-hmm.
It works. So you need to have a process. Logistics. Again, this goes in your SOP. It could go in your SOP.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So think of that. Okay? Finally, advertising. Your favorite.
Least, but okay.
There's online and offline. So traditional media such as TV ads, radio, newspaper, community organizations, sponsorship opportunities at certain events, health fairs. Okay, those are all offline strategies. You can get you can sponsor a booth at a health fair. You can put an ad in the community organization flyer. You can sponsor a support group. You can do all kinds of things. Just get out there and network with people in your community.
And all these things have different effectiveness with different groups. So
yes.
Not just one of these things will work with everybody.
You should know a TV ad expert. You should know a radio expert. You should know we were on a radio show here, not too far from.
Yeah, like 3 years ago.
Right? We should do that. That should be a regular thing. Okay. Newspaper, community organization, sponsorship opportunity. You have to know people in your area. You have to. Online, okay, you have Google ads, YouTube ads, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, Craigslist ads, ads for anything. Okay. Hire an expert or learn how to run basic targeted ads. You want another webinar on this? You know the process. This is my SOP. Go to my YouTube, okay? You ignore the distractions that the internet offers you. You're not interested. You're only interested in Dance Farah, okay? First thing you do, subscribe. Second thing you do, playlist, if you want to go in depth on some of these topics. And we had one on patient recruitment somewhere here. Clinical Research Marketing 101. Attract more patients, physicians, sponsors, and jobs. Okay. There's one that we're going to come back to later on in this webinar. There's the benefits of being a PI webinar. So for this topic, this would probably be the one you would want. This 46-minute video. This only has 2 thumbs up. I'm going to give it a third.
There's no thumbs down though.
You all should give it some as well. And then we'll go back to the Prezi. Okay? It's a very simple SOP. Find Dance Farah, subscribe, like, watch, learn.
You should create that SOP and post it on your site.
I will. And then, most importantly, profit.
Yeah.
Okay. So, this is the online. Now you got to get into my favorite thing. Okay? The difference between branding and advertising. Huge difference. Advertising costs money. You pay for traffic. You pay for attention.
But branding costs money too.
Branding costs your time.
And money.
A little bit of money. Advertising costs
and
only
it works
money.
as advertising too, kind of.
Exactly. Branding. Have a blog. Have a Facebook page. Be active in the community. Reply to comments. Go to other people's pages. Talk about their topics. Don't just talk about your business. Okay? Be interested in them. Facebook group, podcast, YouTube. If you do asthma studies, have a podcast about asthma. Then go to asthma groups on Facebook. Conversate with them. Okay? Not about your studies, about asthma. Talk to people. Answer their questions. They're going to get curious and see who you are. Click on your profile. Make sure you have a link to your site. Then they're going to start asking you. That's branding. Takes time. It's easier to advertise. You create the ad, you run some money, you spend some money, boom. Hopefully you get leads. Branding is free, takes time, but branding never goes away. Branding never goes away.
Unless you go away.
Advertising is a commodity.
Unless your company goes away. Then
if your company goes away, you don't have a brand anymore.
Exactly.
Advertising is a commodity. Facebook can go away.
Right.
They can raise the prices. On your brand, they can't take that from you. Unless, like you said, you go out of business. Okay? So that's the difference. You got to do these things, right? Next one, study staff and training. This is truly your favorite.
So audience, whenever Dan says something like that, usually it's sarcasm.
Sarcasm. Study staff and training. Why don't you read this? I'll be back in 2 minutes. Okay?
2 minutes.
Give people your thoughts. They want to see what you're talking about here.
No, I don't.
Study staff and training.
Study staff and training. All right. So minimal staff needed, PI and CRC. Really, I would disagree with that. The minimal staff could be just a PI. PI can work as a CRC. Just usually they don't. They don't have enough time to pull off both roles. So the PI usually delegates many of their duties to the CRC, and oftentimes other staff as well. But this is the minimum. So again, truly it could be just a PI, but most doctors do not have time for the CRC role. Let's see. No sub-I or additional MD needed unless requested by sponsor or if PI determines it is necessary. So yes, this is all true, but oftentimes, even if the sponsor doesn't request it, a PI may want to delegate more duties than the CRC is qualified for. So in that case, there may be a need for a number of other individuals on the study. So a couple examples would be if you're working on a study with a lot of different rating scales. These take time, and oftentimes the PI doesn't have the time for it, and maybe the CRC doesn't have the educational background to meet the requirement to do these assessments. So then the PI is going to hire an individual that does meet the necessary requirements. Then oftentimes also the PI may want to take a vacation, so they'll need a sub-I there. But that would be about the only times in which the sponsor is not requiring this additional staffing, that there still may be a need for that additional staff. If a CRC cannot do certain tasks, i.e. draw blood, handle EKGs, etc., a research assistant or medical assistant should be utilized. Oh, absolutely. The sites Dan and I own, oftentimes the coordinator does draw the blood, for an example. But on difficult subjects, they can't get them. So there needs to be a backup there. So an MA is a good individual to have at your availability to handle these tough patients. And that could be true of any of these other things that are listed here. Additional staff possibly needed. Sub-Is, regulatory, contract and budgets, recruitment, quality control, quality assurance. Yeah, and that's absolutely true. And the bigger the site is, the more likely this is to occur. If you have a small site, you may not have a need or the means to pay some of these individuals. But if you have a large site, you're going to need all of these individuals. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think you did really good. I mean, I'm just listening as you're speaking, and you hit it all on the head.
All right, great.
Okay, so this is it. Like you said, minimal staff needed, truly just PI, but coordinators, for all practical purposes, needed as well.
Yeah, you guys just aren't going to do that role too often.
We know a few, which you discussed. Necessary training, okay, and then the next one after that is managing workload, which we have another webinar on. See, a lot of these important topics, we have full webinars on them.
Yep.
We can't just be recording videos 24/7.
No. Well, you could, but I couldn't.
I couldn't.
Oh, you could.
Necessary training, okay, GCP, good clinical practice. We reviewed this already. IATA, okay, it's for shipping hazardous goods.
GCP is more comprehensive than just ICF, though. Covers many, many topics.
Correct. And we discussed this in the part 1 of this video.
Sure.
So trial-specific training, like protocol training, EDC, IWRS, which is Interactive Web Response Systems, other study vendors. Whenever you get a study, you're going to have like 12 vendors. Almost all of them are going to have training. Mm-hmm. Your staff has to do that. It's not optional. It's mandatory. IATA might be optional, only for people who draw blood and ship labs. Okay.
Well, sorry, this is a little off topic, but who's this video being? Who's the audience for this video?
Prospective site owners.
Okay, so. And I think we discussed this, and I don't recall for sure, but I think in part 1 we discussed this. Back to the minimal staff required, PI and CRC. You have nothing until you have a PI. So you have to have a PI, right?
Yeah.
You can't get a study without a PI.
Right.
So I think we did discuss that, right?
Of course.
In part 1, okay.
That's the first topic, is finding PIs.
Yeah, okay. I recalled that after I started saying that.
So, but here's the training. We need to go in depth on this, okay, because we didn't discuss this. This is the mandatory training for your site, for any study. Trial-specific training, all right? You got to document this on the training log. SOP training, EDC, vendors. This next one's optional but great, SOCRA or ACRP.
Yeah. As
a monitor, the better coordinators are all ACRP certified.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yep. ACRP, Association of Clinical Research Professionals, or SOCRA, Society of Clinical Research Associates. I think ACRP is more appropriate, but if somebody at your staff has SOCRA or wants to get SOCRA because they want to be a CRA, get them that. Okay.
I would suggest
it's great fundamentals. I'm actually jealous of what these guys do. because we want to do something like this
Sure.
later on down the road. But they do a good job, especially ACRP.
Okay, sorry. So I would also suggest if you're looking to start a site, so first step was you have to have a PI, but I'd say the second step is to get your GCP and IATA training done. Oftentimes now in the feasibility questionnaire process, they're asking for who did you get GCP through, who has this training, who has the IATA training. So you need to have both the PI and the study coordinator have GCP, and IATA can be either of those individuals as well. More likely the CRC, but have those two things.
Managing workload. So to build a successful site, you need to attract and retain top talent.
That's always good.
Very important. How many studies can a PI oversee? What about a coordinator? What incentives exist? Profit sharing. We have a webinar on this. We're going to talk about it a little bit because this is interesting. But here's the webinar again. You know the drill. You know the SOP. I trained you. I trained you on the SOP. You got to watch it. You got to subscribe. You got to like. This one got a thumb down. These webinars get some haters.
Wonder why.
I don't know. But anyways, go pay attention to it. Go like it. Subscribe. And then let's come back to this and discuss. Okay. So how many studies can a PI oversee, Chris?
Depends on the IRB.
Right. What's the average that we've seen?
I think it's in relation to how much time they spend in research, right? So
right.
If you have a doctor who dedicates 100% of their time to research, just research, right? They could probably do 20, maybe 30 studies, I would guess, right?
Right.
When I fill out the initial submission to the IRB for the sites we own, I usually put the PI dedicates 30% of their time to research and is overseeing about 10 studies.
So there's your barometers, there's your benchmarks for PIs. Of course, it's up to the IRB. When you get a new study, the IRB has to approve the site.
Yeah, and if you want to be safe, you should exaggerate these numbers. I didn't tell you this, but...
Yeah, Chris is just going off the deep end here.
Yes.
We would never have you do that.
Yeah.
But it's the IRB's responsibility to ultimately approve you.
Yep.
And keep in mind, they do audit.
And they do.
So be careful with getting creative out there, if you guys know what I mean. Be honest. Okay? Now, coordinator. What about a coordinator? How many studies? So, because people want to know, because here's the thing. You go through finding a good raw ingredient coordinator that you have to spend money to train. Okay? So you enroll them in the CRC Academy as an example, which is our coordinator academy. Right? It's meant for sites or people that want to train someone who's research naive on how to be a coordinator in 3 months. It's a fantastic academy.
Yeah.
Right?
So
you invest all this time and money into this person. Now that they're up to speed and you can start getting an ROI, they leave because the workload is not manageable for them.
So
we see this happen a lot. So what's appropriate for a coordinator as far as studies, workload? Yes, we can go to this webinar, but
we've talked about this plenty, right? CRCs and workload. And I've even talked to CRAs and asked them, what does your employer, sponsor, or CRO, think is a manageable CRC workload? And most CRAs tell me the same thing, no more than 6. They say it's the same for a CRA, no more than 6 studies. It seems like a lot of studies to me for a CRA, but they say no more than 6, right? I would say it's dependent upon the workload requirements of each study too, because some studies are easy, some are more difficult. Also, it has a lot to do with how many patients are enrolled. So there's a lot of variables here. But I would say generic answer is no more than 6, it sounds like to me.
Yeah. And depending on the complexity of the study, maybe even just 1. Depending on the complexity and the enrollment numbers that you're putting in.
You have a really difficult study and you have 20 patients enrolled. It might just be 1 study that coordinator can handle.
Even that, you might even need multiple coordinators for that 1 study. So there's no right answer for this. Generally, for every hour that a study coordinator requires with a patient, they will require another hour at least of paperwork when that patient leaves.
If not substantially more.
If not more, right? So keep that in mind too. It's like just because the patient comes in for an hour and then they leave, it's not like the coordinator has nothing to do.
Yeah, they got regulatory, they have EDC entries, they have queries to answer, they have regulatory, there's all kinds of tasks.
Everything. So about an hour, at least 1-to-1, but it might even be like 2 or 3 hours for every 1 hour patient visit. Mm-hmm. Okay, depending on the expertise of the coordinator too. Okay, so incentives. You're a big fan of giving your coordinator incentives. What do you think is appropriate for a site owner? And first of all, when is it appropriate to offer incentives?
You know, I've seen at times it's, according to sponsors, it's not appropriate, right? For example, offering randomization bonuses.
Right.
Right? They really frown on that.
Every sponsor?
Yeah, which is understandable.
But sites do this all the time.
Sure, but it's understandable because now they may be
skewing the data.
Right, to benefit themselves.
And usually coordinators are not signing financial disclosure forms.
Right. So, yeah, if they can get a patient in and, hey, I get an extra $500 for this, if I just overlook this one thing, they may do that.
So do not put that in your SOPs if that's what you do.
No.
But what do you do?
Well, you can do profit sharing, but I think some sponsors may look at that the same way, potentially.
Yeah.
Right? Because obviously you got to randomize a patient to earn some money.
Right.
So that could be viewed in the same kind of way, which is what I like to offer. Right?
Right.
So I don't know. Honestly, I don't have an answer for this one, but because I don't know if it's appropriate.
I used to do quarterly bonuses.
That's still off of profit sharing, or isn't it based off of profit sharing?
It was not based on anything, really. I just did quarterly bonuses. But each one got something different. But yeah, ultimately it was based on their studies that they had.
Right, and profits from those studies.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Now we do more of a percentage or even an ownership, like the coordinator.
See, ownership I think would be okay. There can't be an objection to that.
Right, but it's the same concept.
It is. It's in the same ballpark for sure.
So, I don't know. Figure out what works. Every coordinator, by the way, not every coordinator wants profit sharing. Some like to do it because they want to be a CRA and they think this is exciting. They actually want to be in patient contact. Mm-hmm. They want to be involved and they're not doing it for the money.
Sure. And then others want to be rewarded for their work.
So try to give people within the framework of the law and what's appropriate and your own ethics, because everybody's North Star is different. I'm not going to tell you what's right or wrong. Do that and figure out what works for them as well.
And unfortunately, there's a lot of gray area in this industry, so it's hard to figure out what's right and wrong too.
Right.
At times.
Okay, so we got through that one. There's only 3 more, Chris.
Yeah.
You're doing really good. I just want to say you're doing really good.
Oh, so are you.
So now we're doing quality assurance. Your favorite.
Are you going to say that for everyone?
Yeah, every bubble is your favorite.
Great.
So quality assurance, okay, also known as quality control in some circles. I don't know the difference, honestly, between QA and QC. I call it QA.
Well,
some companies call it QC. To me, it's the same thing.
So for me,
I know in some companies QA and QC are very different.
So for me, quality assurance would be like what you're doing here, right? You're reviewing documentation to see if it's right?
Right.
Quality control to me would more be like a manufacturing process, right? Something's being made and you're making sure that it's operational.
Right.
To me.
Right. So don't be confused. Don't get caught up on QA or QC. Just essentially, you need someone at the site that's an internal auditor or monitor. So pretend like they're a CRA, but they're at your site. It should be you, the one listening, right? Especially if you have CRA experience and now you're joining the club of CRA site owners. Like, you need to be your own internal QA person, okay? Usually a site director or a hired consultant. Keep the site audit ready. look out for PI oversight, subject safety, protocol compliance, GCP compliance, SOP compliance, data entry compliance, query resolution, speed, all these things. Site metrics matter. Sponsors and CROs are tracking everything that sites do. You want to look good. You don't want to look bad. You want to look like you know what you're doing. And you need quality assurance in place, right? And you should be that person or somebody who's capable of being that person. So like I said, either learn it yourself or find a site director or a hired consultant. Okay? eSource may allow this to be remotely done. Again, going back to you CRAs turned site owners that are double dipping. Okay? And I don't mean in a bad way that you're double dipping. I just mean that's what you're doing. You're doing 2 gigs at once.
How could it be a bad way?
Double dipping in medical terms is considered bad.
Like
you're
double billing.
You're billing for insurance and you're also billing for research.
Oh, okay.
So that was a bad choice of words. But I'm not going to edit this video. This is raw, authentic.
It's going out the way we're making it.
What we're giving you. Okay, so I don't know why I keep zooming. Let's get back. Okay, I got a little trigger happy there.
Okay.
All right.
Don't shoot me, please.
eSource may allow eSource may allow this to be remotely done. We have CRAs that are their own internal auditors, internal monitors.
Sure. They can do it on site through CRA.
They can talk about double dipping.
Yeah, right.
They can be anywhere in the world as long as they have the access to the eSource and they know the protocol.
Internet.
You don't even need internet data.
Yeah, you gotta have internet to get it.
Sure. Okay. So eSource, you get in, you look, you can do SDV, source data verification, source data review. Okay. Pretend you are a CRA. We even have, if you're not a CRA, we have CRA report templates for our clients.
Yes, we do.
Thursday, I'm having one of our CRA Academy interns go out and do an intern monitoring visit at a site.
For a client study.
One of our clients, but in this case also we're a CRO and they're one of our sites.
Yep.
Okay? So if you understand a monitoring report, you understand what's QA. And you need somebody going through these reports. Another great place to get this report is our book, The Comprehensive Guide to Clinical Research. It's in there.
Oh, okay.
Multiple reports are in there. Site selection,
that I knew, but
site initiation, intern monitoring visit, they're all in there. That book is really good. You've got to get the book and the audiobook. Because the audiobook, we go off script like we're doing here.
Yeah.
We don't talk about Bitcoin, but we talk about other things.
I think even Bitcoin came up in that book.
It probably did. Okay, so don't ignore this stuff. This is important. Very important. People tend to relax. New sites tend to relax when they get a study and they start enrolling patients. That's the time you need to get extra vigilant. Hyper vigilant.
Get more studies, get more PIs, and make sure the quality's good.
Yes. Okay, it makes me upset when they do that.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Expansion. Your favorite section.
No, but I think this might be yours.
It might be. Bigger site, multiple sites, site network, CRO, vendor, sponsor. Okay, so we're going to talk about these things here.
Oh.
Or you don't have to do any of it. Keep your site the same. Who cares? It's all about you're the star. That's why this is here.
You'd be very profitable with one smaller site.
You are the star of your own movie. Okay, this is your star.
Is that what you put that in there for, this line?
Yes. You are the star of your own movie. If you're happy with your site, only doing 3 or 4 studies a year, which by the way, many people are.
You can make a lot of money doing that.
It's like a good side gig for them.
Yep.
You can make good money. If you want a bigger site, you can do that. If you want multiple sites, good news. You can do that too. If you want a site network, really good news. That's possible.
Don't know if vertical integration is possible for everybody.
A vertical integration is possible.
Possible, but maybe not probable for everybody.
But not everybody's going to want that either.
Sure.
So anything you want is possible. Okay? Bigger site. Let's go there because that's where most people are headed.
Yeah.
transition from startup stage to a bigger site. Okay.
We did a webinar on this too.
We did. People know the drill by now.
Okay.
Should I go through it again?
No.
Okay.
No,
you know the drill.
You've guided them twice.
Find my YouTube. Ignore distractions on YouTube.
Yeah.
No cat videos.
SOPs.
Follow my SOPs. Subscribe, like, comment, share, and then come back to this video. Okay? So here's a startup clinic. One location, typically. 1 to 3 PIs or sub-Is. 1 to 2 coordinators. 3 to 5 studies per year. 500K gross revenue a year. First 2 to 3 years, you're a startup. Highest profit margins. Okay? That's a typical startup clinic.
I could see all of that being true, except if you're just starting up, you're probably not going to have 1 to 3 PIs most likely.
One.
You'll have 1, but not 3.
Right.
Right, if you're just starting
It's still
up.
correct.
No, I'm saying.
Yeah.
You're not going to have 2 study don't have 2 study coordinators, right?
Right.
Until you have a few studies. Well, we have clients that misunderstand us. This is what I'm saying. That's why I'm...
Okay. 1 to 3.
Remember the one client that hired 2 coordinators before they even had a study?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just saying.
That was foolish.
Yeah, so don't even have a coordinator until you have a study if at all possible.
So that they would just be ignoring this 1 and seeing the 2.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. Don't do that. Okay, this is just the average barometer. Okay, that's a startup clinic. Again, you want to stay like this forever, you can.
And that client that hired 2 study coordinators before even having a study, they're very successful now.
Would you say they've transitioned to medium now?
Yeah, no, probably not. They have 2 sites. Is that medium?
Let's see. Shall we go to the next?
Sure.
Let's go. Medium. If you want, and again, no shame in this game. Stay startup.
Sure.
It doesn't matter.
You can make a lot of money with that layout, and you can make a lot more than 500K a year gross.
And you can make a lot more than a CRA salary.
Oh yeah.
If you're the coordinator.
I would say the startup clinic outline, you could probably bring in $2-3 million a year in revenue.
Yep. Okay, next one, medium. Okay, medium-sized sites. 1 to 2 locations. 1 to 6 PIs or sub-Is. 2 to 4 coordinators.
I disagree already. You're not medium if you only have 1 sub-I or 1 PI probably.
6 to 10 studies per year.
You probably should have made that number 3 to 6.
No, I know some medium-sized sites with 1 PI.
Seriously?
Yeah.
All right.
6 to 10 studies a year, 750K to 1.5 million gross revenue a year. Usually starts around year 3 and up. This transition. That's why I think our clients are about to transition to this.
Okay.
Profit margins a little lower, 50 to 75, but still good. Okay, that's a medium-sized site.
And your profit margins reduced because more staff.
More staff here, yes. Right. Large site, 1 to many locations. Okay, 2 to many PIs and sub-Is. 5 or more coordinators, 11 or more studies per year, 1.5 million and up gross revenues. Usually happens around year 5. Profit margins between 50 and 65%. Can decide to venture into all phases, so phase 1, 2, 3, 4. And vertical integration is my favorite here.
Yeah, I bet.
You have the potential to merge or offer services as a CRO. I know many CROs that started as phase 1 through 4 sites. And then sponsors kept coming to them and said, hey, do you know somebody who can actually help us monitor these things that we said? And they said, hey, we can do this. We're a CRO. And we're the site too. So that's vertical integration.
Sure.
DSCS is doing this.
Yeah, currently doing it.
Currently doing it. With medium sites. We skipped the large. We went from medium to vertical integration. So you don't even have to follow this order. Okay, this is just what's possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here's multiple sites. Okay, this is the next way to expand. Multiple sites. Each can be small, medium, or large. This is what we've done.
Sure.
Right? we have a bunch of small and medium-sized sites.
Mm-hmm.
Could give diversification as well as protection from market and regulatory misfortunes. Okay?
Yep.
Typically share same resources, but not necessarily all. Typically are part of the same parent company or owners.
Usually, yep.
Okay? What's the difference between that and a site network? Well, a site network is different from the multiple site, which is essentially the SMO model, due to the fact that sites form an alliance. It could be formal or informal, but do not share the same ownership.
Yeah, it's a conglomerate that's not all owned by the same parent company.
Right. Now, the same owner can own a part of each of the sites, but each site is its own entity.
Yep.
Profit sharing may or may not occur. Think of it more like a franchise model, although often that's not the appropriate example. Could be interstate alliances and could be big. You could have a role in it all. Okay? You can be a part of this. You can help create this site network and have a role in all of it. Okay, there's power in numbers. That's what a site network is.
Yep.
Now it's vertical integration. You can do vertical integration. We're already doing it. Me and Chris, DSCS. There's a lot of other sites doing it too, better than us. Okay, a phase one can transition into a site network or a CRO. Any type of site can transition to a CRO if they want to. Any can theoretically become study vendors. Creo, Raymond, who started Creo, which is the e-source we use. E-source company is becoming very successful. Started as a site. Then he saw a problem. He saw a pain point.
Yep.
The site still operates. He's just spending his time as a vendor. He created this. His site still runs.
Yeah.
He still owns it. There's other people running it, but he's now become a vendor and a site. Investigator-initiated trials. Right? These can lead to becoming the sponsor.
Absolutely.
The options are almost endless. Okay, you build like you see here.
I would throw a disclaimer out there that you're going to want some substantial background in the research industry before you contemplate becoming a CRO. I would think. Right? You're not going to want to own your site for 6 months, and that's all the experience you have in the industry, and now I'm going to become a CRO. It's probably not a good step.
Right. You need to take baby steps. I think the site is the best place to choose where you want to go. You want to stay there, you want to get bigger, you want to get smaller, you want to be a CRO, you want to be a site network, you want to clone yourself, you want to be a spawn, whatever. It starts at the site.
Yeah.
Okay? And it all is going to start here. I don't care if you want to be the next Pfizer. Okay? It all starts here. Startup clinic, okay? And yeah, you don't have to go like 5 years. You can do it quicker if you know what you're doing. But business, Mike Tyson said something that's pretty cool, and it's fitting for this. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
That'd be very appropriate for him.
Very appropriate.
For him especially.
For him especially. So you may want to own a CRO, but then you can't, then you find a site, you find a PI, you run that site, and then the PI quits and you give up. You're getting punched in the face. Your CRO is not anywhere in sight.
Yep.
Okay, so just the market is the market is the market. It's going to tell you what you can and can't do, and it's up to you to punch back.
Okay? We're getting violent now.
We are getting violent. I'm getting angry here. Your favorite slide coming up.
Miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous.
Don't know why it would be my favorite, but okay.
You came up with this in the Site Owner Academy.
I did?
Yes.
Topics not previously covered.
Mm-hmm.
So these are things not previously covered. Didn't
well,
fit in elsewhere.
Previously covered, but repeats or bears repeating. Okay. So
important enough to repeat.
The business structure. We want to say we are not attorneys. We're not accountants. Okay, we don't act like them on the internet. Right?
No.
But it's very important for you to pick the correct business structure. Okay? And again, no surprise, we have a webinar on this topic too.
Yeah. But first and foremost, research this yourself. Which one makes the most sense after your research?
Consult with a professional.
Yeah.
a tax advisor, and an attorney, and a CPA.
If you'd like me and kind of cheap, spend time, lots of time researching these things. And if you're not too cheap, spend a little money, get some advice.
Or join us as a client, and we'll hook you up with attorneys that do this.
Sure.
Okay, so LLC, sole proprietor, S Corp, C Corp, they all can work. Have a tax strategy. Use a CPA and tax attorney. Okay, don't forget about this. Bookkeeping.
Is that important?
Your favorite.
Is that important?
I use QuickBooks, but you can use anything you want. There goes our student. She's leaving. She's going to be monitoring Thursday with me.
Fun.
Okay, so bookkeeping. Okay, I like to use QuickBooks. Chris likes to use Excel. You can use whatever you want.
No, that's because I'm cheap, though.
Just use something.
Sure.
Okay, study oversight. CTMS. We talked about the e-source.
Yep.
That has a built-in CTMS. You might as well use it. Chris likes to use Excel. Okay, there's other things too. Sales funnels. There's 3 stakeholders. How are you going to track all these things? Who you reached out to? Who needs follow-up? Who said this? Who said that? So you got to track your sponsors, your physicians, and your patients.
Mm-hmm. Develop a system.
Okay? I use HubSpot. Okay, but you can use Excel. Mind your profit per study. Some studies are not worth doing. Got to know when it's time to pull the plug.
Or just tell them no to be right up front.
Or do that. Okay. Profit per study. Important. Keep track of invoiceables.
Mm-hmm.
Chris loves doing this.
I hate invoices, but yeah, you have to keep track.
Have to keep track. You have to do it. Chris is right now in the process of training staff to do this. Hopefully. Mm-hmm. Right?
There was no training today.
Okay. But you are going to. Somebody's got to do this.
Yeah, it has to be done.
Mind your site metrics. How quickly do you enter data? How quickly do you respond to queries? These are site metrics they're tracking.
And these are important metrics.
Important.
Because more so than, not as important as recruitment. That's by far the most important metric, right?
Right.
How many patients and how quickly. But I would say the next most important is answering these type of things, right? Like you had mentioned, queries. Queries are very important. They want those answered quickly. How quickly do you enter your data? They want that done quickly. Those are very, very important. Again,
mind your P's and Q's.
Not as important as recruitment, though.
And nothing is as important, we've heard from 5 CROs, big ones, as patient recruitment. Yep. That's it. Okay. Yep. But your other metrics are also very important. Mm-hmm. Right? I love horizontal integration, meaning multiple sites. Mm-hmm. Buying your competitors if you can. Well, if you're a baller, you're going to do that.
Yeah, I don't know about buying.
Right. You get it.
Sure.
Horizontal, vertical integration. I like to do it all because that's the only way I can control the outcomes. The more horizontal and vertical I expand, the more I can control outcomes. And the more options you have.
Sure.
That's my strategy. You don't need to do that because it's a lot of work too. Okay. There's other ways to do it. You can invest in real estate, invest in Bitcoin, whatever you want. It doesn't matter, okay? Always recruit more physicians. Always recruit more physicians.
Very important.
Always recruit more physicians.
What happens to your first PI?
They always leave.
Always.
Usually.
Yeah, like 90% of the time.
And I will end it on build a brand. Build a brand.
I don't know how important that is for an individual site, but okay.
If you want to do all the stuff we talked about.
Yeah, the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's not so important at startup phase.
Well, even I guess you do need to brand an individual site because you want the sponsors you've worked with to come back to you.
It's not so important at the startup and medium-sized phase, but once you start getting to that large and the multiple sites and the site network and the vertical integration, it becomes a very important thing for you to focus on. Mm-hmm. So that is the Comprehensive Guide to Clinical Research. It was a pleasure doing this with you, Chris. This marathon.
Talking about a marathon.
Part 1 was 2 hours. Part 2 is probably going to be a little under 2 hours. Yeah. Okay. But we have a Site Owner Academy. It's still $3,000 until January 2020.
Then what's it going to be?
It skyrockets to $10,000. It's like Bitcoin. It's going to be the price of a Bitcoin. in January. So you want to get in now, get grandfathered in, be part of our site network, be part of our community, because quite honestly, that's growing faster than we thought, and we're starting to see that there's a lot of benefits people are getting in there, and so we're trying to control who gets in now. And so price is, of course, one of the great variables in supply and demand.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so anyways, you don't need to do that. You can just watch these 2 videos and figure things out. We have a consulting company you can work with us on. Dan Sfera signing off. Chris Sauber signing off.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody. Bye.